Accounts. In recent months, the political landscape of the United States has shifted dramatically, counts, revealing a deep and growing uncertainty surrounding the presidency. The foundations that once seemed unshakable are beginning to tremble under the weight of economic strain, political polarization, and institutional fatigue. Accounts. What we are witnessing is not merely a routine political challenge, counts. It is a profound crisis that exposes the weaknesses of an entire system that has long been stretched to its limits. Counts. The signs are everywhere, markets swinging wildly, voters turning against the establishment, counts, and global allies quietly distancing themselves from Washington's direction. The presidency was once defined by confidence, command, accounts, and clarity of purpose, but now it faces mounting doubts from within its own ranks. Former loyalists are beginning to waver, questioning the sustainability of policies that have widened the gap between promise and reality. Counts. The grand narrative of national strength and economic revival is being tested against numbers that tell a different story: rising debt, stagnant wages, and a public losing faith in the leadership that vowed to restore their prosperity. Counts. The rhetoric of greatness can only go so far when confronted with the arithmetic of discontent. Behind closed doors, party strategists are sounding alarms that were once unthinkable. Counts. Internal polling data show erosion in key battleground states that were once considered strongholds. The middle-class voters who once championed the campaign's anti-establishment message are now expressing frustration with the lack of tangible improvement in their daily lives. Accounts. The anger that once fueled victory is now turning inward, and that transformation poses the gravest threat to the political machinery built on outrage. Counts. Meanwhile, the economy, the supposed crown jewel of the administration's legacy, is showing cracks beneath the surface. Inflation remains stubborn. Accounts. Interest rates have constricted investment, and the housing crisis is pushing millions further from stability. The corporate sector, once a staunch ally, accounts, is beginning to hedge its bets, channeling funding toward opposition candidates as uncertainty looms over the next election cycle. Counts. The narrative of economic dominance is colliding with the lived experiences of working Americans who see their purchasing power eroded and their hopes dimmed. Counts. On the international front, the dynamics are no less perilous. Longtime allies in Europe and Asia are recalibrating their foreign policies. Counts. Seeking distance from Washington's unpredictable approach to diplomacy. Trade partners are crafting alternative alliances, wary of the volatility that has become a hallmark of U.S. politics. Counts. Even traditional adversaries have found opportunities to exploit the division and hesitation now visible at the highest levels of power. The image of America as a stable global leader is fading, replaced by a perception of chaos and conflict. Accounts. At the heart of the crisis lies a deeper structural problem: the inability of modern American politics to reconcile the contradictions of capitalism with the democratic ideals it claims to uphold. Accounts. For decades, economic decisions have favored profit over people, speculation over stability, and short-term gains over long-term planning. Counts. The result is a fragile system where leadership depends less on vision and more on maintaining the illusion of control. The presidency, in this context, counts, becomes a stage where economic anxiety, cultural fear, and political theater collide. Public trust, the essential ingredient of any functioning democracy, counts, is evaporating. The people who once believed in the promise of change are now cynical, exhausted, and angry. Counts. They see a government preoccupied with image rather than substance, with partisan battles instead of national unity. Accounts. They see billionaires thriving while their own wages stagnate, and they are beginning to ask hard questions, questions that no speech, slogan, counts, or campaign rally can easily answer. The presidency finds itself surrounded not by enemies from abroad, but by contradictions from within. Counts. It must explain how prosperity can coexist with inequality, how freedom can thrive amid censorship and division. Counts. How democracy can survive when truth itself is constantly under assault. These contradictions are not new. Accounts, but they have reached a breaking point under the glare of 21st century media and the relentless scrutiny of an increasingly disillusioned public. The coming months will be critical. Political opponents sense vulnerability, investigative pressures are mounting accounts, and the nation's institutions are showing signs of fatigue. History teaches us that when trust in leadership collapses, accounts, the consequences reach far beyond elections. They reshape societies, economies, and global relations. Counts, what is unfolding today is not simply a political drama, but a reflection of a nation struggling to redefine itself in the face of economic decay and moral confusion. Accounts, the presidency stands at a crossroads. It can either confront these realities with honesty and humility or continue to rely on spectacle and deflection. Counts, but one thing is clear: the illusion of invincibility is gone. The winds of change are gathering. Accounts, and no amount of political spin can silence the growing chorus of discontent. What lies ahead may well determine not just the fate of a presidency, counts, but the direction of the American experiment itself. As the storm intensifies, accounts, every move from the administration is being scrutinized under a harsher light. Each policy announcement, each public statement, accounts, is met with skepticism rather than support. The once unshakable base is showing signs of fatigue, caught between loyalty and disappointment. The media, sensing blood in the water, has turned its attention toward the fractures that were once easily concealed. Congressional hearings are growing louder, investigations are expanding, and the corridors of power are buzzing with uncertainty. Behind the confident speeches and public appearances, counts, there is a palpable tension, a realization that the system may be slipping out of control. In the streets, protests are growing more frequent, counts, driven by citizens who feel forgotten and betrayed. The economic strain, the rising cost of living, counts, and the growing sense of inequality are converging into a national outcry. The presidency, which once promised restoration, counts, now faces a reckoning born from its own contradictions. The nation stands divided, not merely along political lines, but along moral ones. Counts, the question no longer revolves around victory or defeat, it concerns survival. The system itself is being tested. Counts, and whether it endures or collapses will define the next era of American history.